spectacular morning. In this burning heat, seems like a bit of an odd time to be thinking about growing winter veg. But I said last week that, sorry if you can hear sirens, something's going on in Richmond. We've had fire engines and Neenors and everything going past, so I've tried to record this video a couple of times now and they just keep coming past, so I'm just going to accept it, and you know, we'll just accept it as background noise. Yeah, winter veg. So last week I said I was going to have a think about my kind of plan for winter this week. So something I think is a bit of a shame when allotments just kind of get put to bed over winter, when it's really not necessarily. Like, you can grow all through the winter, but there's kind of three categories. If you're not talking about in polytunnels and greenhouses and that kind of thing, there's sort of three categories of winter growing. And the first one is the things that I would kind of class as genuine winter produce. It's things like Brussels sprouts, cabbages, parsnips, that kind of thing. They're the things that you're actually going to be eating in sort of December, January, February, that kind of time. Some purple sprouting broccolis like really kick off in January, but that's not stuff that you start sowing now. That's things that kind of were started in April, May, at the, you know, in spring basically. And then, because they're really long season crops, like Brussels sprouts are in the ground for so long, and unfortunately I've got very little of that. So kale is in that category as well, and I've got Cavallonero growing. I got that sown March, and then I did another lot April, May, and that's in the ground, and that will be something that we're eating throughout the whole of winter. But a lot of the stuff which was supposed to go in April was a bit of drama here. Like, things weren't going very well with mum, and I had a lot of work on, and it was all just a bit hectic. I missed out a huge amount of what should have been sown in April, and a lot of that stuff was kind of the brassicas and parsnips and that sort of thing, which we would have been eating over winter, but we're not going to be. So another category of growing over winter and making use of space on the allotment or in the garden over winter is things that you plant in the autumn and they kind of sit there, and then you get them in the spring next year. So they're not things that you actually eat over the winter, but they're kind of use of growing space. So that's things like overwintered broad beans. So you sow them in autumn, they get to about this big, and then they sit there like not really doing a whole lot until the first kind of burst of good weather in the spring, and then they rocket up and you get a really early crop of broad beans. And the same principle applies to peas. So autumn sown peas, you'll get a really early crop in the spring, and then you put another lot in the spring and you'll get kind of a second wave of them. Onions and garlic you can also put in the ground in autumn, and it will just overwinter quite nicely. Lots of varieties of garlic will do that, but not so with onions. There's some which are much better at it than others, so you just have to do a bit of research. But if you've got the space, the good thing about the onions and garlic is that they actually come out quite early the next year. You're not using up your whole bed into the following season, so you can still use it for something else later. Like, normally the garlic will come out before you get the courgettes in the ground, for example, so you can kind of have a bed being used all over winter, harvest your garlic and then get your courgettes in, and it's just a really nice flow. Couple of other things that will be going into the beds in autumn, waiting for action in the spring, is I've got some purple sprouting broccoli, bit late for it, but I'm trying it anyway. And I also have spring cabbages. So when these chaps get a little bit bigger, they will go into the beds and then they'll establish, sit there over winter, and again, spring cabbages is where we're going. This is Durham early. And then the third category of winter growing, which is sort of the stuff that I'm really starting to think about now, is if you don't have protection, greenhouse, polytunnel, covered beds, that kind of thing. It's the kind of things that you start sowing August, September, and then you are harvesting it all the way up until the first frosts. So it's kind of October, November time, depending on what your frost is like and what the year's like. You get it all the way through until then. And then if you have, this is the category of things that if you have the protection, if you have the polytunnel and the greenhouse, this category of vegetables is the stuff that you would sow outdoors now in August, end of September, sow it again, and then that will be the stuff which goes over winter in the polytunnel and the greenhouse. And that is things like the oriental veg, so pak choy. You saw I already got some pak choy up in there, but because it's so hot I think it's not going to work very well, so I've got another lot started in the greenhouse, and I will sow that all the way through repeatedly up until September. And that goes for things like tatsoi, Chinese cabbage, all of that. There's a huge number of different variations in that similar vein, those kind of oriental vegetables that are all wonderful. That's like Mizuna, which I grew for the first time last year, which was absolute revelation. Mustard greens is another one. I'm going to be growing a lot of mustard greens this year because last year they were fantastic. And actually, I did grow some of them all year round outside, so I had half of them in the polytunnel and half of them outside, and actually the ones outside did better because the ones in the polytunnel all bolted from what I remember. But yeah, the Mizuna was fantastic, and chicory, spinach, radishes, turnips are another good one you can get in now. I'm just still sowing beetroot. I'll be putting that in the ground outside, but the stuff that I'm going to sow now, so like at the end of this month, will probably be for the polytunnel or in pots in the greenhouse when I get that going. I'm also having a go with some kohlrabi. I do not know how that's going to go, but that's going to be being put in the polytunnel as a bit of an experiment this year. Oh, and herbs. I've got dill coming along here. I've got some more basil sown. I've sown that a bit thickly actually. Might have to do something about that. But herbs, if you can protect them over the winter, you can have them all year round. So something else to get in about now that I'm sort of thinking about sowing, I've already sown one lot, but it was kind of accidental, is the Chimidirapa, which is sometimes called broccolini, I think. It's like flowering turnip tops. They're really, really delicious. They're absolutely fantastic. I already have half a bed of that on the go because I let some go to seed, and when I cleared it, I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago, when I cleared it, I shook a lot of the seed out. I saved half of it, shook the rest out, and that's all coming up now. Well, it was about this big, but now it's about this big because the pigeons got at it, which I must cover it up today actually before I go. Very annoying. But I'll do another half bed of that beginning of September. I've just set some chicory off, leaf chicory. I loved it last year, it was brilliant. I had some in the polytunnel and I had some outside, and both were fantastic. We've got a red stemmed one and a green stemmed one, and they are fine. Outdoors again all winter, landcress. Underrated landcress, I think. Like, you can use it like little bits of it in salad and it's really, really peppery. But when you cook it or you make soup out of it, it tastes exactly like watercress. It is brilliant. I absolutely love it. So I'm going to be getting really quite a lot of landcress in this year. I grew about 2 rows of it last winter and it was brilliant. I didn't grow anywhere near enough of it. So I'm going to get some more in of that. I'm talking of salads because you can use that for salad or for cooking. Winter lettuces are a big thing. There's a couple of varieties. I think there's Winter Density. There's 2 really famous ones. Winter Density is one of them. If I can find the other one, I'll put it down here now. Really unimpressed with both of them. They grow beautifully, they taste awful. So I won't be doing either of those. However, I was looking on the Real Seeds website the other day, which is a really fantastic website just for information about sort of planting things, and particularly if you want to save your own seed. I'll put a link to that underneath. But they had 2 recommendations for winter lettuces that they specifically said tasted great, and they were Winter Marvel and Reine de Glace. So I'm not even going to bother with the Winter Density things this year because I don't eat them. We grow them, they look fantastic, just don't eat them because they're unpleasant. So I'm going to try these 2 varieties this year and see if they're any better. But there's loads of salady stuff that you can grow over winter in polytunnels, in pots, in the greenhouse, wherever. You know what I mean when I'm saying covered beds. And that's loads of the lettuces will cope. There's also a fantastic, like a frizzly endive, which is a lettuce that kind of grows densely from the centre, like frizzly curly one, which is really, really lovely. Carrots grow fine in pots over winter if they're covered. I don't think I'm going to bother covering. Do you remember last year I sowed a really, really late sowing of carrots? I think it was like October, mid-October, outside in the little carrot bed that we've got, and they survived the whole of the winter and we picked them in the spring. They were absolutely fantastic. So I think we're going to have another go at that. But last winter was really, really mild. So I don't know if it was just a fluke that they worked, but I am going to be growing them in pots in the greenhouse. Since building that polytunnel, I've got way better at getting winter stuff in, because at this time of year I find it really difficult to remember to start sowing things again. I'm on it this year because I had such a poor spring for sowing. I'm really on it for the winter stuff this year, but I've got quite good at using because it's a raised bed in that polytunnel. I've had last 2 years really successful winter harvests. Really haven't made the most of the greenhouse over winter. So this year I'm going to be doing pots and pots and pots of stuff in the greenhouse over winter. It's a bit of a trial and error because it's not something that I've really done before. We used to have little trays. I don't know if you remember, I had a big polystyrene tray in there last year that we tried to grow lettuce in, and parsley grew really well, and then we got a huge infestation of fungus gnats, which kind of ruined it a bit. Feeling really on it about winter sowing this year, despite the fact that I have no Brussels sprouts, no kale other than the Cavolo Nero. I have no purple sprouting broccoli. What I do have though is, you know, the tree cabbages that I moved, really poor time of year to move them in the burning hot heat. Well, miraculously, they seem to have survived. So I will have cabbage leaves. And while I'm here, I've realised I've completely forgotten to mention leeks, which are another overwintering harvestable vegetable. And these ones are coming along pretty tick. So I'm very pleased about that. And actually, while I'm down here, I can see an ichikukuri forming. Woo! Exciting times. So that stuff. Oh, there's one other thing that is a classic for winter growing, and that's Christmas potatoes. So you put them in now in the greenhouse or Polytunnel or wherever, and you should have potatoes on Christmas Day. Often there's a real problem with growing potatoes late because they get blight, but judging by how the year's gone so far, I just don't think blight's going to be a problem. Blight can't survive in a desert, and we are in a desert right now, despite the coming rain. Fingers crossed. Okay, well that's me kind of talked out about what I'm planning to do with the winter sowing. So obviously this is me just having a bit of a chat about ideas about growing over winter. As I actually get round to doing it and start sowing things and making decisions on the varieties that I'm going to do, I'll be sharing it with you anyway. So we'll go through it as we're going, but that's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. I'm going to get this month, I'm going to get the first wave of the outdoor stuff sown, the long-term winter veg, which is the things like Brussels sprouts, a lot of the curly kales, the cabbages and stuff, I haven't done. I missed out on that early spring, so I'm going to compensate with tons and tons of leafy greens over the winter this year. That's my plan anyway. Right, chaps, I have got to do some watering. I'm going to go and turn the hose on, stand around here and do watering for a couple of hours. Then I'm going to go home. And tomorrow, I'm not going to be up here. We've got exciting times tomorrow. Not a bad haul, not a bad haul. Next up, coriander. I am so happy with the coriander, the way it's growing under this enviromesh. It's just a revelation. Coriander before, when we've grown it in pots or outside or wherever we've tried, it's just been a bit gnarly. Do you know what I mean? When you buy it from the shops and you buy these huge swathes of soft, fresh coriander, it's gorgeous. And then what we were growing was sort of a bit tough and a bit bitter, but actually growing it under here is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Couple of courgettes to take home. The plants themselves aren't massive, but they're producing a lot. We've got this little short fat one and a stripy. Getting enough for the two of us. Mum and I love courgettes, but my dad thinks they're the spawn of Satan, so in we go, It's home time. Home time. In you go. Yeah. Good girls. Good girls. Yep. I won't see you tomorrow. You'll be seeing Mum tomorrow, girlies. Okay. Okay, watering is done. I've picked some bits and it's time to go home. It's really heating up. Morning. Day trip today, guys. We're going on a day trip. Woo.
Please speak to a member of staff if you need further.
The charming North Sheen station's looking particularly barren on this roasting morning. There's nobody else here, but I do get to look out at the allotments. And we're off on a proper train out of town. I found Sarah. Excellent. Do you remember Sarah? We used to do pub quiz with Sarah. Did that a couple of times. And look at that blue sky. Perfection. It's hot.
It is rather warm down here, isn't it?
Remember, we're on the lookout for some fish and chips too.
Oh yeah, of course. Maybe we can some research.
Yeah. We've come to the seaside, chaps. Ooh, tat. Welcome to Eastbourne.
I'm not going to get in it because it'll collapse. Cheeky little breeze.
Ooh, it's windy.
That old fashioned Swedish.
I can see the sea. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So excited. Last time I saw the sea, I was with you guys in Northern Ireland. And then before that, gosh, the last time I actually got in the sea was in Portugal before lockdown. I took Mum to Portugal for 4 days. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited.
I can't even turn my head.
It's a beautiful morning. Yet another stunning morning. It's quite early, so it's still quite cool. It's beautiful. We're just coming up to the top of the path and look who's waiting for us. Is there a Lil? Meow. Is there a Lil? Is there? Huh? A Lily Baloo! Someone's abandoned some monsters at the top of the path.
That's a courgette, actually.
Yeah. I think they might have got away, these ones. Woo!
Oh, they're enormous, aren't they? Poor people. Don't go on holidays.
No. Cool, blimey, it is drier by the second up here. Look at this. Oh, wonder what that one is. Another abandoned something. Don't even know what that's meant to be. Is it a white courgette? I don't know. It's massive though. What are you doing, Lil? Going visiting? Does the gate come apart?
No, it's just that I've taken it, undone it, and then it's just done that.
Leave it to me. You go through and I'll take it.
I think something might be eating these in here.
Oh no.
They look pretty good, but there's some of them bitten off.
This bloody thing. We got this is the old chicken fencing from years ago, and it just keeps getting tangled. I've really got to put a proper gate on here. Good morning. Another heat escaping early morning up at the allotment. It is about what, 8:30ish. And I'm going to do some feeding today. So up until now I've been using, we had some comfrey feed that I made at the end of last year. We just had it in a massive stinking reeking bucket like next to the greenhouse, and so I've been using that, but that's run out. And obviously normally I would just make some more comfrey, but because we are living in desert conditions, the comfrey is not in any condition to be made into feed. It is crispy, so I'm not using that, and I'm going to my backup feed, which is always the best one, which is the seaweed. So normally I do alternate between the two, but so far I haven't actually got the seaweed out and about because I put so much feed into, do you remember when I sorted out the soil in the polytunnel before, after I took the winter stuff out and before I got the tomatoes and things in? I did a massive kind of renovation of the soil and kind of moved it all around to try and sort it out a bit, because it had been a bit barren, and I put a lot of grow more in there and stuff, so I haven't really been feeding that much in there. I've just been using the comfrey sort of on other things. But anyway, today is seaweed day, and yeah, which means walking backwards and forwards with a lot of watering cans. I am going to do the tomatoes in the polytunnel and the peppers and chilies. I'm going to do the cucumbers and the melons in the greenhouse, and I'm probably also going to do the courgettes that are out and about here. Hey girls, that's what I'm going to do. Got a water feature, girlies. Happy girly wellies. Happy girlies. Just turned the hose on in their little patch, and now I've turned it off. We've got a bit of a leaky kind of connector, and they seem to be loving it. It's like, yeah, they've got their own little waterfall. Nice. Okay. Feeding. Let me go and find the watering can. So I think liquid seaweed feed is just brilliant liquid magic, basically. I think it's wonderful, wonderful stuff. And one of the advantages that it's got, so if you're buying sort of synthetic commercial kind of fertilizers, generally fertilizers are kind of graded with an NPK value, which is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, which is kind of the macro nutrients that plants need in a kind of very, very general terms. Nitrogen for the leaves, phosphorus for the roots and potassium for the flowers, which obviously then entails fruit. That is an incredibly generalized picture of fertilizer, but it kind of stands to be true anyway. What I really like about the seaweed is not only that it has all of those macronutrients, but it has got the most vast array of all the micronutrients that the plants need as well. It's got a little bit of everything in there, and I just think, you go across the board, that is got to be better. Synthetic fertilizers tend to focus very, very heavily on those macronutrients. They just don't have the nuance that organic fertilizers like the seaweed feed have. The liquid seaweed feed that I use is from the Shropshire Seaweed Company, who are fantastic. They originally sent me some for free, actually, oddly enough, with some seaweed-based oven cleaner. I'd forgotten about that. Anyway, the feed was brilliant, and well, so was the oven cleaner, to be honest. But the liquid seaweed feed is what we're talking about, Jessie. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And since they sent me the first one, what I really like about it is that they have a refill system, so you don't have to keep going out and buying a new bottle of it. I have been going to a place in Teddington and I can get my bottle refilled, which is absolutely tick.
While you're feeding the plants, I'm going to pick the raspberries. I gave them a really good water the other day because they were looking a bit shriveled. But anyway, let's see if I get attacked when I go in here again. Oh, there's quite a few.
Ooh. What's next?
Mulberries.
Mulberries.
I ate most of those yesterday. Though. Well, I didn't have enough I didn't have anything to put them in to carry them home, so I just ate them.
You just put them in your mouth?
Yes.
I saw some fatties earlier when I was just glancing in. Where was I looking?
Somebody hasn't been in to take them. I noticed there's some plums over there. Can you see them? I wonder if that's someone wanting in to get the plums.
Oh, maybe.
There's going to be a lot of these very shortly.
Yeah. Oh, that's where I saw them. It was down here.
Where?
Right low. There. Right, well, I don't think these are worth taking home. Do you want one?
No, we will just eat them. There's going to be a lot, though. Thank you.
Yum.
Delicious. Oh. Okay. There's a lot coming, though.
Back to feeding. I nearly forgot the cucumbers and the melons, which would have been a bit sad. Particularly seems they're the ones in the small pots and need it the most. I'm quite impressed with how much they've grown actually in the last week or so. They got really, really burnt. These are the melons. You can see they got really burnt at the bottom and then now they're really starting to pick up. They've got quite a lot of flowers on them. I don't suppose we're going to get any melons this year. It was all a bit late. But you see they are growing. They've got quite a lot of new growth on them. This is where they got just completely got by the sun. But yeah, loads of lush new growth here. These are cucumbers. See, the new leaves are all looking really snaz. But yeah, a bit sad at the bottom. And unfortunately, they've got red spider mite, which is a pain. We always get problems with reds. This one's all stuck in there. We always get problems with red spider mite in here. It's just so dry. The best way to get rid of it is to have a constantly humid environment. And in here, it's just not humid at all. It's barren, in fact. Even though we spray the bark chips on the floor with water every time we're up here. Just dry. Hey, little melon. Nice flowers. It's just dry, isn't it, chaps? Yeah. Okay, that's the feeding done. Pretty good. At least round one of it anyway. And everywhere else is a bit too hot. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. That was the important bits I wanted to get done. Next up though, we do have a couple of the potatoes in bags still that we still haven't emptied, and Sim's mum's up here. We can do it together. I'm going to tip some of, can you see these ones? They're looking very sad. It's all over for them. I'm going to tip them into the wheelbarrow and we'll see what we got. So they're different varieties this time. We've already taken out, what was the two that we've done already? Sorry, it's all a bit hot here. Where am I going? Is that shade? That's shade. Yeah, so we've done Sagitta. We've done Red Duke of York and we've done Casablanca. And in these bags, we've got British Queen and Pink Fir Apple and who's this? Kerr's Pink. Oh yeah, I forgot we decided to do Pink Fir Apple. And also Kerr's Pink was the one that last year was stunning. So I don't know if we're going to tip all of these out today. We're definitely going to do the British Queen. And we'll have a look at the rest. So British...
I'm so happy with having clean hands. Yes. Oh, they're quite a nice size. Not bad. Oh, shells in there too. The real old compost like that one.
Grab that one there. Oh no. Yeah. I think that's
Sifting of the soil too. Oh, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, not bad.
For one. Yes.
Happy?
Happy, very happy with those, yes.
Right, let's head home. It's getting very hot.
Okay. I'm ready to go. Now you stand in the shade now, so.
Yeah, let's go. In, chicken. Time to go in?
You don't need any mint.
Not for lunch, no. Right, shall I get that tin, girlies? Yeah? Let me get that tin.
It's full up now. I might need a shake turn because it's all the corners on the bottom.
Okay. What's this? Yeah! Come on, girls. Come on. In we go. Oh, someone's come racing out. Come on, girlies. Come on, got excitement. We have. Yeah.
You finished with the feed?
Yes. See you later, Wellington Wellies. A few raspberries, a couple of potatoes. Quite happy. Did she? Cheers, chaps. I think this is the end of the hot weather. When you look at the forecast, it looks like it's sliding down. So from this coming week, it's going to be down to like 24 by the end of the week and with thunderstorms. So fingers crossed. I know they've promised us rain and storms before in the last like month or so, and it hasn't actually played out, but this one is looking on. So I'm really, really hoping that we're going to have next week's video is going to have quite a different feel about it. It's going to be rain and it's going to be cool. Please let it rain. And also this week was allotment week and I completely forgot to mention it. I had it written in the calendar, you know, like big, this week is allotment week, and yeah, I just didn't look at the calendar. And a calendar doesn't work unless you look at it. That is key to calendar usage, and I didn't this week, which was a bit silly. So I'm just mentioning it now as a very final thing. This is the last day of allotment week. Well done, Jessie, you did that well. So when I was editing me talking about winter veg, I realised, shockingly, there is a glaring hole in what I was talking about. Do you know what wasn't mentioned? Did anybody notice something that I didn't mention at all in any of the vegetable categories? No? Chard. I missed it out. There was no chard mentioned at all. Even though it can basically fit into all three of those categories, because if you've got it really well established outside and the winter's not too harsh, it can be a crop that you pick throughout the winter outdoors if it's a mild winter. I've got some which is on the grow now. It's about this big. That's going to be going into the polytunnel. I'll probably have some in the greenhouse. Yeah, and you can sow it now. So, wow, I can't believe of all the things I forgot, it was the chard. I feel so ashamed. Dearie me. That's very poor show, isn't it? Really poor show, forgot the chard. And the other thing actually in that I wanted to mention and I forgot was about the chimney wrapper. So you know the half bed that I've got of it was all saved seed. Well, I don't know if that's going to come true and be chimney wrapper. I know that brassicas can be a bit funny like that, and I had a lot of other brassica things kind of around them. So I'm just going to have that half bed, save the seed, which I also saved, you know, because I sprinkled half and saved half. I'm going to save that, see what actually comes up in that bed and see if it's, you know, good. And the other half bed that I sow is going to be just, you know, out of the packet, like official bought proper chimney wrapper seed. I meant to mention that earlier, but I didn't. That's something you've got to be careful with when you're saving your own seed, because quite a lot of the time what you end up with, particularly if you go anywhere near trying to save seed from pumpkins or any of that kind of cucurbit family, it's just, yeah, it just doesn't work. Doesn't work. But yeah, so that's something else that I completely forgot to mention. Didn't do that very well, did it? Makes me think maybe I should really think about some sort of notes or script when I'm talking to you rather than just winging it all the time. Anyway, cheers to a bit of rain. Cheers to the end of the hot weather. Cheers to being in the sea. I know in the video I'm not actually like up to here and swimming, but that's because I was having to film it and on my phone, so I didn't really want to do that because swimming, I'm not a very good swimmer anyway, and swimming with one arm up in the air with a phone on it, I didn't think was a great idea, so you only got the wading shots. Whereas we did actually do some swimming and it was bliss. It was absolute bliss. Gorgeous. I've never been to Eastbourne before. Actually, that's not true. I did the Seven Sisters walk, you know, the hills that kind of go along the coast, and that runs down into Eastbourne. So I had been there once before, but it was very, very brief and we were shattered, and the only thing we could manage to do was stagger into a Wetherspoons and have a pint while we waited for our train. So that's the only part of Eastbourne I'd actually seen up until this week, and it was lovely. What a sweet place. Really, really nice. I think if we get any more warm weather, I'm going to be spending a lot of it on the coast. Right, what else is there to mention? Q&A that I mentioned last week didn't happen this week because I had like loads of stuff on this week, but next week, so as soon as this video goes live Tuesday afternoon, I will put the community post up with asking for questions. So that will be then the following week's video will be a Q&A. Tick. Things are moving on in Patreon. We have got a Discord going out this week. Discord is like a chat board, so you can, rather than on Patreon where it's just like direct messaging, we can share photographs and things, and I'm really quite looking forward to that because I don't really get to see what everybody else's allotment or growing space is like. So hopefully when we've got that going, we'll be able to have a bit more of a, like a, you know, a sharing thing going on rather than just bam, bam, bam. Yeah, so that will be good. Just a little special mention, this is currently my drink of choice, Inches. Really nice cider. What I like most about it is, do you know Mawam, the sweeties, or like apple refreshers? When you first open the can and you smell it, it smells exactly like apple refresher bars. It doesn't taste like apple refreshers, don't worry, and it's not ludicrously sweet, but the smell of it just makes me think of sweeties, and that's always nice. That's good. Okay, well, I think that is it for this week. Boys and girls, cheers to Monday patrons and cheers to everybody else who's out there on a Tuesday. For all of us who've been in this terrible heat wave, I hope we are all soaking wet when next we meet. Cheers, chaps.